a time of gathering with those you love most, and the second wave of COVID has changed the way any of us can celebrate this year. With feelings of isolation and loneliness rearing their ugly heads this season, we're connecting with trauma therapist Sherry Botwin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate it, Sherry. And, a lot of people, they're feeling down right now. In the colder, shorter days, they aren't going to help in the coming weeks. So you've got some tips for our viewers?
I would say this is probably going to be the hardest time, and I think it's so important that we keep doing things to keep our lives moving. We have structure, we keep exercising, we keep connecting with people, and also to know that these short days, each day will be shorter, but then it will be longer. So to just stay in touch with the idea that this is just for right now, it will not be like this forever.
Yeah, always nice to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and literal light when it comes to solstice, right? So how can we manage those feelings of loss and isolation, especially during the holidays?
I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that we're feeling it and to be able to talk with people about our feelings and not to feel like I shouldn't be feeling this way. I think right now everybody is experiencing some type of loss, and to be able to recognize that what you're feeling is important and to also know you are definitely not alone in these feelings. The more we talk about it and the more we can validate and acknowledge our feelings, the easier it is to tolerate it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, knowing that it's valid to feel a certain way, and it's even more valid to talk about it. So let's talk about demographics, because certain demographics are more at risk than others when it comes to mental illness during this pandemic. So which populations are we needing to pay attention to?
So I feel most concerned for people who have already been struggling with different types of mental health issues, whether it's depression, addictions, post-traumatic stress disorder. I think that one of the worst parts about the pandemic is it reactivates those feelings of isolation, the part of us that feels hopeless and helpless. And I think to be able to recognize that if you already had some type of mental health issue, this is a time that you really want to make sure that you access support. And if you're not getting help, that you really do want to be able to ask for help. I also feel like people who live alone, people who are older, people who are already dealing with health issues, there are so many different groups of people right now that really are getting hit very hard by the pandemic. People who were struggling financially before and now are struggling even more, healthcare workers, teachers. I feel like probably in some ways everybody can fit into this population if we really break it down and look at what's going on in our lives. I think pretty much everybody has one or some of these traits that they dealt with before COVID came to be.
Yeah, and I feel like this really plays into you saying, we're not alone. I particularly think of those living in care homes as well and those caring for them. Let's talk a bit about healthcare. So frontline medical workers, they're exhausted. We've seen it. They've been dealing with this virus and others' illness since March. So how can people prevent the onset of things like PTSD in situations like this?
I mean, the most important thing for anybody working on the front lines is to be able to continue to talk about what happened when they were at work, not to come home and act like everything is okay, but to feel like they can process it. And if they don't want to talk about it that night, that's okay too. I think being able to also step away from work and do things that are about self-care. And for loved ones, if you are supporting somebody who works at the hospital or who is taking care of sick patients, try really hard to just be there for them. We can't fix what's going on, so just be an active listener, support them, and reassure them that, again, what they're feeling is normal. If people are upset or angry, don't try to make those feelings not so, because of course you're going to feel those things. And just to keep being able to recognize this is a really difficult time, and we don't want to minimize the importance of what is happening. And people who are dealing with it on the front lines, they're seeing things every day that most people don't see.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think kindness is key as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Very valuable information. And to connect with Sherry, you can visit her website at sherrybotwin.com or find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Reader